We are back with the lovely Lorna Henry Shepherd. Lorna, what are most people surprised to learn about you when they get to know you? Hold on a second. Sorry. Sorry. I had your mic turned off a second.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yes. So, did you hear the question?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think you asked me what are people surprised to know or to learn
When they get to know you.
about when they get to know me.
Mhm. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I think that many people are surprised to know how down to earth I really am.
Hmm.
I am just I am a fun loving person. I just enjoy. I love nature. I love being by the beach. I love just I just love living life to the fullest. Um, I love to dance. That Caribbean blood. That's just who I am, and I basically still, to a large extent, still the same Lorna that you knew back then, except for, of course, the growth in
Hmm.
all of these different areas that you would expect as an adult. But in terms of just being just open and, I think a caring person, that's who I am.
What would you say has been your biggest professional success and setback?
Um, my biggest professional setbacks actually, um, well, let me see how I'm going to tackle that. I think for some time I thought that I was going a little slower in my journey that I could have gone. But the thing about it is that at the right time, I just get catapulted straight to where I need to be. So I would say that I am right on track, Selwyn. Except that I think in the grand scheme of things, I am just only about halfway in my journey. I know that because there are so many other things in the next seasons of my life that I have to accomplish. There are seeds that are planted within me that and just things that have been placed within me that I know I need to do, that I want to do. I want to be able to start a scholarship, for instance, for foreign students who went through the type of hardships I went through when I first came as a foreign student without a scholarship. That kind of thing. I want to do that kind of giving back. I know there's a lot of the entrepreneurial, really full entrepreneurial spirit that has to be fully unleashed in me. And so there are many things that I'm so excited about that I already have in my spirit that just need to be manifested. And I'm just excited. I mean, you actually got a hold of me at the time that I am just excited about what the road ahead holds. I can't contain it. Um, I just know there's just so much I have to be involved in on so many different levels. My the private practice that I had begun and everything, I'm getting these urgings again to really go back to it to a large extent and really conduct it at a high successful business level and things like that. So there is so much that needs to be done, so much that I have to share, and so much mentoring that I have to do along the way. That I am just filled with excitement at what the next half of my life and the next seasons of my life
I,
uh,
I
look like.
I can
I'm
only
just
imagine.
getting my vision board, as I achieve things, I take down, and I'm just ready to start putting up again.
So, what would you say is your biggest professional success?
Um, I actually think, Selwyn, I feel so successful as an effective professor. as an associate professor. I feel extremely successful in that light when I get feedback from students who not only I've been nominated, I've been given, a letter about an official letter through our Thank a Teacher program for faculty who have made a great impact in a student's life and things like that, and that's all official. But I think where I see myself as being successful is when I get these little emails from students on a consistent basis saying how much they enjoyed a particular class, how much I made a change in their lives, how inspirational I am, and things of that nature. It's not very uncommon for me to, in the midst of delivering subject matter, and something may trigger it, but I start a session where it's a little pep talk or something. And I've been told, maybe you need to be a motivational speaker. I was told that. But I find that's where I think my success comes from. That's where my joy comes from. I feel joy in being a professor. It really does give me joy when my students graduate, when they've overcome difficulties, and I see that they've caught on to a concept that was giving them, that was challenging them. And most of all, I remember shedding tears just this past June. I had about 8 or 9 of them who I joined them from the beginning, and they were struggling. Sometimes we had problems with they were not pleased with a grade that they were given, and right to and
Oh.
things like that. And of course, I wouldn't relent, and they, and they had to work hard and things like that. And and to see them graduate, and I took this picture, and they were across there, and and I took this great photograph, and I started to cry. One of them said to me, "Don't you dare." She couldn't stand to see me crying. That's how I felt. As I told them, I said, "This is a success for me, seeing you overcome your challenges. And I've planted seeds in you, good seeds. I know that you are going to go all over the world, and we're going to reap a harvest of mine."
Let me go.
Another great success, I would say, was being part of a team that actually created an entirely new program, Bachelor of Science program in nutrition. This was at Kaiser University in Florida. And, not only was I involved in just creating the entire curriculum and the syllabi, helping, speaking with the admissions department in recruiting and getting, great students coming in. But we got it accredited. Okay, so we were part of that initial accreditation, myself and 3 other ladies, and that was one of my greatest successes. For my group personally at my campus, what adds to that success is the fact that all of those students now have graduated. Some of them are in very great positions around Florida. Some of them are in private practice, but they all passed their registration exam on the very first sitting. So that has been my legacy for that campus.
I want to go to the chat room for a bit. G said, "Interesting. Is it possible? Is it possible that diabetes might be able to normalize their?" Let me reread this. Sorry. Is it possible that diabetics might be able to normalize their natural insulin production, if that's the correct term, on vanadium?
Yes, that is actually, it's not exactly our hypothesis, but that is exactly what we are hoping to find when the data is, properly analyzed.
Okay. see if I can ask you this. What parts of your work, um, or what do people look for in a nutritionist or a dietitian?
That role has changed so much, Selwyn. I'm actually in this field at a very exciting time.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much that you can do. You can go to the highest levels, obtain the doctorate and be able to teach at high levels, at the highest levels. That's one thing. People are doing it in media. They're doing shows. They're combining it with sports medicine. I have myself had actually combined nutrition and being a registered dietitian with the field of public health, concentrating in epidemiology, which gave me, more clout and kind of opened the doors wider for me to walk in and to be able to people actually work at the CDC. With that, they work in community areas. I myself, while I was in the process of doing my doctoral degree, I worked at the with the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children, as a director in the state of New York. And so there's just so much that you can do. It was one of those things. My daughter asked me today, about majoring. She wants to become a dermatologist, and she has to go through medical school. And so we had this little talk in the car about majoring. She says, "Mom, what did you major in?" I said, "Well, I did major in nutrition because the biology majors, they were packing groceries in the store." So it actually gave me something, a professional area that I could have gone into and made money while I was studying to a higher level. So that's the thing. And the field is wide open. It has changed somewhat when I had first graduated with an undergraduate degree. It was a little bit kind of subservient to the medical field. People just did it in the hospital setting, and that's all well and good. We do need clinicians. We do need people who are going to do the clinical aspects and work along with medical doctors in a hospital setting for people who are ill. But I think for the most part, the new breed of dietitians, nutritionists are really in the wellness movement. And so we are trying to teach people how to eat right, how to shop, how to put their meals together, talk to them about things that are naturally contained in foods, the phytochemicals, the antioxidants, that need actually that if they depend on that and they eat the right servings and they know how to choose their foods and how to combine them, that they are actually protective and preventative against certain types of cancers and inflammatory conditions and things like that. And a lot of people are not aware. Even coming back to this whole issue of cancer. I was touched by a post I had seen this morning on Facebook that my little brother wrote, and I just didn't have the time, but I said I need to start posting certain things because really on one hand there is a genetic component to any illness, but then there's the environmental component which can either inhibit or trigger certain conditions. And so getting people, not when they're ill, to start making changes, but making lifestyle changes all along, just making the right selections, really consuming the fruits, the veggies, the berries, the antioxidant laden, the antioxidant rich items in their diets on a consistent basis, exercising, doing their screenings, at appropriate times and things like that. So, that's one of the things I think, as nutritionists and the new breed of nutritionists and dietitians, we actually, we have that responsibility actually to get people moving in the right direction in health promotion.
I'm going to go to the chat room again. Deb asked, where do you see the obesity epidemic leading America? Is it improving?
No, it's not. Interesting enough. No, it's not. It's one of the most troubling issues. And unfortunately, because, the world is so Americanized generally, in places that we were not seeing obesity, we are seeing it in other parts of the world, in epidemic proportions as well. As a matter of fact, the last time I checked, greater than about two-thirds of adults are in the category of overweight or obese. One third, or greater than one third, about 35 percent, they're actually obese, and it's not really improving. Children as well, greater than one third of the nation's children and adolescents, they are overweight or obese. And there's several different campaigns on local levels, state initiatives, and things that are going on. But you see, we're sending double signals and double messages. On one hand, uh, we get all of these kinds of the models and so forth, displaying these actually, thin figures, marasmic looking figures. And we have sometimes young teenagers, they're aspiring towards that. So they're either becoming anorexics or bulimics. On the other hand, we just have the kids that they just eat whatever. It's amazing that many children in the United States, they're not eating fresh fruits and vegetables. They're just eating the fast foods and so forth. And now with a lot of mothers out there in the workforce, it's becoming a problem. It's not uncommon. I mean, I watch it every day. You see mothers stopping off a drive-through and picking up a box of Popeyes or Kentucky Fried Chicken and that kind of thing. And so, education is a great part, but part of it is that people also have to want to change and have to want to be educated, because without them yearning to make changes in their lives, it's actually pointless.
Um, the chat room again, Karen asked, how has nutrition awareness changed since you started working in the field?
Hmm. Well, it has changed to the extent that that whole paradigm shift. The way nutrition used to be when I started was really just as an adjunct to medical services. Usually, people would not even care much about anything nutritional unless it came to when they were ill and they required maybe a restrictive diet or something like that. Now it's so different. People are we even have a group of younger people in the field that are so they are really gung ho and fanatic about it, and they go strictly they carry the message out there, going strictly vegan, or sometimes it's just whole foods all the way. They eliminate totally anything animal, or the raw foods. And some of these, some of them are fads, or they can be um, potential fads, because if people are not thoroughly educated as to how to put foods together, then they can cause themselves to become malnourished from the point of deficiency. So that's also a big issue.
And Karen again,
I think there's greater awareness.
uh-huh.
The average person, has an opinion now about nutrition. The problem is, though, which troubles me as a professional, and I know a lot of my peers, is that there's so much misinformation out there, and people tend to go with in this microwave quick fix society in which we live. People want to go with the easier option, the quick fix. I've had people, come to practice and ask me if I sell products like Ally and things like that, because they just want the quick fix. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to go through the process of making change, because behavior change is hard. And, it all comes down, really the truth the true message is that there's really no gain without making certain changes, lifestyle changes, even in terms of the weight issue alone. It's really energy, input versus output. Uh, on any level, if you increase one without the other, you're going to have an imbalance. Either you lose too much weight or you gain too much weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the basic message. And no matter whatever companies come out and whatever products they push, it still comes back to that basic issue that it's an energy balance issue, which has to be addressed through diet and exercise. And there's no quick fix, no matter how great they think it is, that can actually remedy this problem. And until we get people to understand and accept this, we're going to have this obesity epidemic.
So Lorna, how you managed? How did you manage to maintain this spiritual balance? And while I'm asking, you're thinking about that question. Um, the question I have for you is, hmm, tell us a bit about your spiritual journey and how it has helped you today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually, and I really can't sometimes pinpoint exactly how it happened. I knew I grew up in a home where we went to church, a Christian home, and things like that. But then as I journeyed through my life as a young adult and some of the adversity that I had to overcome, whether it was the initial, little financial issues as I tried to complete an undergraduate degree without the benefit of a scholarship and paying higher foreign student tuition and things like that. It those were some things I had to overcome. Then later, in just a little later in my life, I had other personal relationship type things that I had to overcome. And so, I realized it's okay to get angry. It's okay sometimes to say it's not fair. I don't deserve such and such. But I just made a conscious decision through, I guess, reading in the Word. I started reading more in the Word. I saw that as I took chances and risks and made an effort to step out in faith, that things just generally would align for me, and that most of the time, for every setback, I was propelled a little further each time. And so, my faith grew. There's nothing like when you experience something to really strengthen your faith, and I think I've pretty much grown now from that point in my life where, I had a little faith and I would put it to the test and, things worked out. And I've come to that point now where I think I've crossed over from, I hope it will be well. So I know that all is well. That's that deep faith. But it came from reading. A lot of it is reading in the Word, meditating. I always meditate and clear my mind. And I had to make a conscious decision. If I had to go forward in life, then I had to actually release those things that no longer served me, or that would be of benefit in my life. And so I had to let them go. I couldn't hold on to anger. I had to do a lot of forgiving, which I think actually benefits you more, benefited me more than whomever I had to forgive. And that was it. I'm just totally centered in spirit. I don't do anything apart from God. I really sometimes still myself and I sit and I listen. And it's amazing the amount of insight that you have deep within you, and you just have to rely on it, call it up, and step forward. And it's amazing what can happen.
When are you most
First, somehow aligns.
when are you most satisfied in your life?
Could you repeat?
When have you been most satisfied in your life?
When or where?
When? Yes.
When have I been most satisfied with my life? I think I am most satisfied with it right now.
I like that. I love
Yes.
that.
And you know why? It's a process and it's a journey. And I've had really great experiences as I shared, before. I've had several different mountaintop experiences with each challenge, with each trial. I had some mountaintop experience along the way,
Mhm.
and I felt great at each of those stages.
If
I'll go back even with my schooling. It's funny. As I was doing my first master's degree, I actually was pregnant with my son, who's now 27. When I was defending my doctoral degree, I was pregnant with my daughter, who's now 17. And even with that, the pregnancy, the pressures of defending a dissertation, and all of that, just calling on what was deep inside of me, and having really, I was blessed as well, having people around me that benefited from their wisdom. Some of the big names that my sponsor Isabel Contento and Dr. Barbara Wallace and Dr. Joan Gusso, and these are really big names in the field of nutrition and health and nutrition education, and John Alagrante, all big public health names in New York. Um, and I had the benefit of their wisdom and their encouragement, and they made me feel that I could do it.
okay.
And I was ready, and only when I was ready, they said this is a done deal. And I felt really special having a chance to have worked with such individuals. And they were not afraid to let me know if something was not up to par. So
What do you know now you wish you knew 10 years ago? What is one thing? Just one thing you know now you wish you knew 10 years ago. I know this is unfair, but
No, well, you see, I think within the past decade, I've evolved, I've grown, but I think my mindset was pretty much the same. I
Ah.
think I would better answer that question if you said maybe 20 years ago.
Take 20 years ago, Lorna. 20 years ago.
Yeah, purpose.
Okay.
So what I know now, I live on purpose.
Hmm.
Now, and as I had said earlier, back then when I started out and in my 20s and even earlier 30s, it really was about Lorna achieving what she set out to achieve. It really wasn't about the greater good in terms of a global good, in terms of me imparting to others and watching them grow and going and multiplying what I've done for them in other places. So my perspective was different, my mindset was different. And I actually am quite pleased with the person I've evolved into over the past decade or so, because I live fully on purpose, and I live actually to help empower others,
Hmm.
and to see those seeds grow.
With all your accomplishments, Lorna, what still surprises you about you?
You've not never thought about that, but all my accomplishments. Well, every now and again, I pride myself in being reflective and analytical, and I have to be poised and professional, etc. But every now and again, Selwyn, I still let the lion loose. You just have to mash my toes in the wrong place.
Maybe you should have kept those shoes that you were trying to break up. They would have protected your toes. What are you most proud of?
Pardon me?
What are you most proud of?
I am proud of what I've accomplished, first of all, as a mother,
Hmm.
raising, and of course, as you can tell by now, part of my adversity was actually going through divorce as I was trying to complete my schooling and things like that. And, I was conflicted at one point because in as much as I wanted to accomplish in those other areas, and, it always seemed relatively easy to do that because I would focus and accomplish it. It seemed that the thing that I valued most and that I wanted most always seemed to be challenged the most.
Mm.
And so that was something difficult. But anyway, despite all the challenges, and despite the fact that I've walked this journey, part of this journey as a single mother, I am so proud at the two well-adjusted, smart, children with vision that I've helped to mold. That's my greatest joy. And
Congratulations
I
on
think
that.
the best period for me is when my 27-year-old son comes by to visit, and he sits there with me, and we talk like friends. And he's telling me about challenges he's encountered he's currently encountering in his journey, and we talk, and I give him encouragement, and sometimes he even gives me encouragement as mom, as we discuss our challenges together. And just to see him sit there and soak up everything that I say to him, and just the expression on his face, like it's priceless. I can't really fully explain it.
I was going to ask you next, when are you most happy? So is that the time when you're most happy?
Yes.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 16-year-old self?
I would say, Lorna, don't be as trusting. That's what I would say. Don't be as trusting. Not everyone would want to celebrate you.
Mm.
Not everyone is happy for you. Don't listen to the negative talk or the criticisms of others that might be not constructive. Listen to constructive feedback and better yourself, because that's where wisdom comes from. But disregard anything that's not constructive, and do not be discouraged by the opinions of others.
Lorna,
That's what I would tell my 16-year-old self.
I
I
have.
would always say I would tell my 16-year-old self to stand up for
Mm,
something,
mm.
dare to stand up for something. And when you do stand up for that thing, whether it's popular, well, it might not be popular actually, or you might not be popular, but stand up for it anyway. Of such is integrity developed. So that's the advice I would give to my 16-year-old self.
I want to beg you, or let me ask you to indulge us another minute or two. I just noticed there was something else in the chat room. Um, Ken said, I love rice and bread, but I have been hearing that these foods are not good for you. My stomach keeps growing. What should I do? Give up these foods?
Okay, it's Ken. Ken, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, well, from my philosophy, I do not put foods in that dichotomy of good and bad.
Mm.
I think really what becomes the good and bad element is really the habit that can become a bit junky. Rice in itself, there are different types of rice. A little rice in itself and a slice of bread, a slice of toast, is not detrimental. It's really, I think what has happened is that in this society, we tend not to have control. We tend to consume what they call biggie products, supersizing, and things like that. We've come far away from what an actual portion is supposed to look like. And I think that's where the damage comes in, with the calories building up and so forth. And then, of course, the calories build up, you become round around. And of course, and that kind of roundness around the trunk is also correlated very heavily with diabetes in men, type 2 diabetes. So you have to be very careful with that. I would say watch your portions. a slice of bread, half a cup of cooked rice. It's not that bad. The thing is, what I usually encourage people to do is dare to let the rice be the small amount. If you do eat meat, let that be the small amount. And let the greens and things, let that be the large part in the plate.
Lorna, I am thinking, I'm wondering what type of security we'll have to give you if you were to return to Guyana and preach this particular doctrine. Let the rice be the small amount. And
No, well, Selwyn, don't misunderstand me. I am not anti-rice by any means. I love rice myself, but again, it all comes down to appropriate portion control. Whether it's rice, whether it's potato, whether it's bread, whatever starch it is, or starchy vegetables. And we had this thing from Guyana where, we would have this big plate at dinner time, and we would, it's most of it is rice, and so forth. And that's really, to make changes, that's really not the way that we should continue to eat. We can eat our traditional foods and the foods that we love, but we have to have some semblance of portion control, on a consistent basis. And we also have to, I think one of the things that is detrimental to West Indian people on the whole is sometimes the way that we actually prepare foods that are healthy, potentially healthy, and make them potentially unhealthy foods, either by overcooking, where the greens have lost their identity, or we add things to them that make them unhealthy.
Last question, Lorna. What makes you laugh out loud?
What makes me laugh out loud? Sometimes what makes me laugh out loud, sometimes I just remember things. Um, so I actually laughed out loud just earlier tonight, and I remembered something that happened in 2C, and I can't say it, of course, but it was an incident where of course, Selwyn, being mischievous, you said something to Kim Skeet.
Oh, you're gonna use this. You're gonna use my live show to bring up that incident, Lorna. Look, good night.
You see, you laughed out loud as well.
Yeah,
And as I said, I never bring that up. I'll bring it up, but I'll never say what it was.
Oh my
But
God.
Selwyn, I remembered this tonight, and I remembered her response.
Oh my God.
How much I had laughed out loud with my feet up in the air and everything.
But you always like to laugh anyway, Lorna.
Yeah,
Well, Lorna, look, this has been a pleasure, and
same here.
taking us through this journey, your journey. I really appreciate it. I had a wonderful and enlightening and informative experience with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well. This really was a conversation. It felt like a conversation
Awesome.
between friends, and I would love at some point to be able actually to interview you
Oh my
on your
gosh.
journey, and overcoming some of the things that you had to overcome as well.
Well, we'll make it happen sometime.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night, Selwyn.